This one's called The Man Without Gravity. The movie starts when we see a woman named Natalia and her mother Alina. They're driving through a storm to the hospital. The woman is in labor and in pain. She begs her mother to drive quickly. When they reach the hospital, a nurse at the reception informs them that no doctors are available now, so she herself helps the woman. Natalia finally gives birth, but the baby does not cry. In fact, he floats. And he floats in the air like he is lighter than air. The three are stunned. Natalia grabs the umbilical cord and gently pulls him towards her. Natalia and her mother run away with the newly born without providing their information to the nurse. Natalia is over the moon to birth such a special child, meaning that she's very happy. She assumes that her baby is an angel. At home, Natalia assumes that if he eats something, he will stop flying. Alina asks her who the father is, but it turns out that Natalia doesn't even know because she was a prostitute. Alina then declares that the child will not be allowed to leave his home. She wants to protect the baby from the cruel world outside. The following morning, Alina wakes up to the child sleeping on the ceiling. She carefully brings him down. The two name him Oscar. Just then, four friends of Alina arrive at their door to have a look at the newborn baby. Natalia ties the baby to a crib with a belt and covers him with a blanket. The women do not suspect anything really. One of them tries to pick Oscar up, but Alina doesn't let her, saying that the baby is very fragile, so just leave it alone. The women end up leaving. The two then make the house's ceiling comfortable for the child so he can sleep freely. Alina tells people that Oscar is allergic to the sun, so he cannot come outside. Now we cut to a few years later, and a lot of progress and process has happened. Oscar has grown up into a beautiful child now. He is still not allowed to go outside the house by his grandmother. His everyday life includes looking at people through the window and watching Batman on TV. Alina also teaches him to read and write at home. One day, Natalia makes him a jacket with weights on his pockets. This makes Oscar able to walk on the ground. Natalia is happy, 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 because now she can send her son to school. However, Alina is against him leaving the house for his own safety. Even when Natalia insists, Alina doesn't budge. One day, Oscar is alone in his house when he opens the window and tries to get out of it. The little girl is mad at him and asks him to help her carry the groceries to her house. At first, Oscar hesitates, but then he agrees to help her carry bottles. The two walk away from the store. They talk about several different things on their way. After they walk for a while, Oscar is tired because of the weight in his pockets, so he throws them out. The weight of the bottles keeps him on the ground, but when they reach Agatha's home, she asks him for the bottles, knowing that he will fly away without them. Oscar refuses. The two tug the bottles and eventually drop them. Since the weights are gone, Oscar flies, but thankfully is stopped by the roof. The little girl assumes that he is a superhero and watches him in awesomeness with her mouth open. She gives him her backpack so that he can stay on the ground and promises not to say a word. Natalia is now at home, worried to death about where her son could be. Just then, he comes home running. On the following day, Agatha and Oscar play together. She comes to Oscar's every day for, just like a play date type of kids things. One day, Agatha's grandmother brings her over. As Natalia and she talk, Natalia realizes that Agatha knows about Oscar's abilities, so she doesn't allow Oscar to play with her from the next day. Agatha visits Oscar's house, but Natalia always makes up an excuse to send her away. One day, Agatha brings her grandmother to Oscar's. Natalia dismisses them, saying that Oscar has to do some homework. But Agatha reveals that Oscar doesn't go to school. The grandmother, along with the other ladies in the town, call the police to Natalia's house. They demand Natalia and Alina to admit Oscar to a school. Now both of them agree. It is now Oscar's first day of school. Now we cut to that. And Natalia takes him in, but realizes that the kids are supposed to keep their backpacks and overcoats outside. They finally decide to move to a remote town to avoid anyone checking on Oscar's condition. Cut to a few years later now, running and running and running. Oscar is all grown up now. Alina had passed away. The mother and the son have now moved to the mountains and live a normal life there. Oscar always has his backpack with him. One day, Oscar sees an advertisement on the TV about a talent show. The announcer urges anyone with a unique talent to audition for this specific show. He wants to take part in the show to showcase his talent. So he decides to leave the town without telling his mother. A few days later, Oscar is now at the talent show where he shows everyone his flying abilities. Everyone is amazed. Some assume that Oscar is even an angel. Oscar's biggest dream is to have a book written about him, and David promises to make that happen. Now, without hesitation, Oscar signs a contract with this guy named David, which I kind of don't like. Then David gives him the title A Man Without Gravity as his stage name, so called. After signing the contract, David gives him a luxurious house as a gift, you know. He wants his mother to stay in the house as well, but David forbids it. The guy doesn't like the idea. The next day, Oscar starts performing on TV shows and appearing as a model in magazines. As he keeps flourishing, initially, he loves the fun city life, but gradually he starts to realizing that he's kind of empty and he's pretty bored. He starts gaining a lot of fans and a lot of attraction. To make Oscar even more famous, David deliberately creates false stories about Oscar. He is bored of the celebrity's life, so he asks David to terminate the contract. But just then, I told you I didn't like David, right? Just then, David mentions a publisher who wants him to meet David to write a book about him. Hearing this, he changes his mind. His dream is finally going to come true of getting a book written about him, finally coming to life. He is beyond delighted and amazed and controlled by this idea. However, when he goes to meet the author and the publisher, he gets to know that they're just interested in selling as many books as possible and just about the money. They want to exaggerate his life story for the profits, painting him as extremely poor in his childhood and adding false stories, really. Hearing this, Oscar is just mad and he just refuses to work with the publisher, and he's sad. The following day, David invites Oscar's mother over because he knows Oscar misses her. The next day, Oscar makes a mistake while appearing on a live TV broadcast, everyone. So check it out. Now, what David does is that he just furious at him. Oscar reveals that he doesn't want to be the man without gravity anymore. He asks David to fake his death so he can live a peaceful life. The news spread like wildfire. Everyone talks about Oscar's death. Journalists come to Oscar's house every day to try and interview his mother. Days pass, weeks pass, and Oscar has changed his identity to a guy named Desky, Desky, Desky. He changes his appearance and pretends to be handicapped so he can tie himself to a wheelchair when going outside. Desky is now working as a receptionist at a hotel famous for prostitutes. Oh yeah. One Christmas Eve, every room is empty except for one. Desky goes to check on the person in the room. He finds the new prostitutes there, who tells him everything is fine. As he's about to leave, the woman calls Desky by his real name, Oscar. Oscar is surprised, as it turns out that the woman is Agatha. She has started working as a prostitute. They are very happy to finally meet again. And the very next day, they go out on a date and talk about many things about the past. At night, they come back to Oscar's room and have sex. They actually love each other and they like each other, but Agatha still hesitates to accept Oscar's love because of her profession, if you may. They go into a huge fight about the situation, and Oscar ends up leaving. The next day, Oscar goes back to his old town to see that the place has been deserted. Now, Oscar meant to do this because he wanted her to leave that life, but her, being insecure, felt unworthy of being loved. The museum they opened to display Oscar's belongings has been closed as well. He goes inside his old house and stays there for a while, when suddenly someone knocks on the door. It is Agatha, dressed as her younger self. Seeing her like that, Oscar smiles. Cut to a few years later now, Oscar and Agatha are married and live in Oscar's childhood home. Agatha is pregnant now with their child. Oscar has started working as a window cleaner. And this plot ends there. If you have received value in this video, I believe you know what to do. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for listening. Thank you because you like it and share it and do all the good chat you got to do. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for listening.